Welcome to the Historian Crow. If there's one name that sends a chill down the spine of ancient civilizations, it's Genghis Khan, the guy who basically looked at a map of the world and said, "I'll take it." Born in the harsh Mongolian steppe, he rose from humble beginnings to become the leader of the largest contiguous empire in history. How? Well, let's just say that diplomacy wasn't exactly his strong suit, unless you consider sending an army of 100,000 your version of saying, "Let's talk." So buckle up. This is the story of Genghis Khan, world dominator, empire builder, and part-time terrorizer of the known world. The humble beginnings of a conqueror. Let's rewind to 1162-ish, because when you're born in a nomadic tribe with no records, birthdays are kind of a best guess. Enter Temujin, the boy who would one day become Genghis Khan. And just to make things interesting, his birth story involves him being born clutching a blood clot in his fist. I mean, that's a major don't mess with me energy right from the start. If you're the kind of person born holding a blood clot, world domination seems like a natural career path. Temujin's early life wasn't exactly a Disney movie. His father, a Mongol chieftain, was poisoned by enemies when Temujin was about 9. After that, his family was abandoned by their tribe, and little Temujin was left to grow up on the Mongolian steppe, sort of like being stranded in the world's harshest, most desolate desert, but with more wolves. Young Temujin had it rough. He was kidnapped, imprisoned, and generally had the kind of childhood that would make even Batman say, "Wow, that's tough." But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, or, in Temujin's case, makes you want to conquer everyone around you. After escaping captivity, he started to gather a following. And when you can get people to follow you in a place as cold and desolate as Mongolia, you're clearly leadership material. Rise to power. Now, Mongolian tribes weren't exactly known for their unity. They spent most of their time fighting each other, like a giant, never-ending sibling rivalry with swords and horses. But Temujin had a different idea. He thought, "Hey, instead of us constantly fighting each other, how about we fight everyone else instead?" And that's how he began uniting the Mongol tribes under his rule, which is a nice way of saying he convinced them through a combination of charisma, strategic alliances, and the occasional violent massacre. By 1206, Temujin had conquered enough of Mongolia to be declared Genghis Khan, which means universal ruler. I mean, if you're going to go for a title, why not aim big? No more of that local chieftain nonsense. He was now the ruler of everything. Well, everything he could see, at least, and Genghis had very good eyesight. The Mongols were now a terrifyingly efficient war machine, and Genghis had no intention of stopping at the Mongolian borders. Borders, after all, are for people who aren't Genghis Khan. The secret to Genghis' success, you're probably wondering, how did this guy manage to take over so much of the world? The answer, brilliant tactics, a dash of psychological warfare, and an attitude that screamed, "I'm not here to make friends." Genghis' military strategies were ahead of his time. Speed, mobility, and unpredictability were the hallmarks of his army. The Mongol cavalry could cover more ground in a day than most armies could in a week, and they loved a good surprise attack. Think of it as the ancient world's version of guerrilla warfare, but with horses that never seemed to tire. And if you thought his battle tactics were terrifying, wait until you hear about his use of fear as a weapon. Genghis would send messengers to cities ahead of his army with a simple message: "Surrender now, or we'll level your city and build a pyramid out of your skulls." Shockingly, a lot of cities decided to surrender. Those who didn't, well, let's just say there were more skull pyramids than Starbucks. Genghis Khan versus the world. Now that Genghis had unified Mongolia, he looked around and thought, who's next? First stop, China. The northern Chinese kingdoms had been bullying the Mongols for years, so Genghis decided to return the favor. He invaded the Xia and Jin dynasties in northern China with the same finesse as a bull in a china shop, except the bull has an army of 100,000 horsemen. After years of siege warfare, city razing, and general destruction, Genghis Khan had his revenge. But why stop there? Genghis didn't want just one civilization under his belt. So he turned west of the Khwarezmian Empire, which occupied modern-day Iran and Central Asia. Now, Genghis initially tried to play nice with the Khwarezmian Shah. He sent a trade delegation to open up relations. In response, the Shah had the entire delegation executed. Not cool. This turned out to be one of the worst decisions in history, because Genghis Khan responded the way you'd expect, with an apocalyptic invasion. The Khwarezmians were wiped off the map, the Shah fled and died in disgrace, and Genghis added yet another chunk of land to his empire. The man, the myth, the ruler. It wasn't all blood and thunder with Genghis, though. The man had a softer side, or at least a practical one. Once the conquest part was over, he was actually pretty good at governing. Genghis implemented laws to create order, promoted religious tolerance, and even set up a postal system that made communication across his vast empire possible. Imagine that. You could send a letter from China to Persia thanks to Genghis's Pony Express. Who knew that Genghis Khan was such a fan of snail mail? He also valued merit over birthright, promoting people based on their skills rather than their family ties. If you were good at your job, Genghis didn't care if you were a commoner or a noble. And while he was busy conquering half the world, He managed to father enough children to ensure that his DNA is now in roughly 16 million people. So, if you're of Asian descent and wondering why you're really good at horseback riding, now you know. The fall of Genghis Khan, spoiler alert. It wasn't his empire that fell. Genghis Khan's empire-building days came to an end in 1227 when he died during a campaign against the Western Xia in China. How he died is still a bit of a mystery. Some say he fell off a horse, others say it was illness, and there's even a rumor that he was killed by an enemy princess. Whatever the cause, Genghis's death didn't slow down the Mongol Empire. His sons and grandsons took up the reins literally and continued to expand the empire, conquering territories from Russia to the Middle East to Eastern Europe. It was like a family business, but instead of opening a second store, they took over the entire continent. As for Genghis Khan's burial, it's one of history's great mysteries. The location of his tomb remains a secret to this day because, according to legend, everyone who attended his funeral was killed to keep the burial site hidden. Talk about taking rest in peace to a whole new level. The legacy of Genghis Khan. So, what's Genghis Khan's legacy? Well, if you overlook the whole burning cities to the ground thing, it's surprisingly positive. The Mongol Empire brought unprecedented stability and trade to the regions it controlled. The famous Silk Road flourished under Mongol rule, connecting Europe and Asia in ways that hadn't been seen before. He also spread innovations like paper money, diplomatic passports, and an organized legal code. But perhaps Genghis's greatest achievement was showing the world that if you're born clutching a blood clot, you might be destined for greatness, or at least for world domination.